Long ago, in the age when gods and men walked closer together, there existed a mighty empire, an island of wonders, wealth, and wisdom beyond compare. This was Atlantis, a kingdom spoken of in hushed tones by scholars and dreamers alike. Its story begins not with its glory, but with its end, for Atlantis was swallowed by the sea, leaving behind only whispers and mysteries. The tale comes to us from the wise Plato, an ancient Greek philosopher who first wrote of Atlantis. He spoke of a powerful civilization ruled by just and noble kings, blessed by the god Poseidon himself. The island was said to lie beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar, a land larger than Asia and Libya combined. Its people were advanced beyond measure, with towering palaces of gold, silver, and orichalcum, a metal more precious than any known today. But as with all great kingdoms, pride grew in the hearts of the Atlanteans. They sought to conquer, to spread their dominion across the known world. And so, the gods grew angry. In a single day and night of fire and fury, the earth shook, the seas roared, and Atlantis sank beneath the waves, lost forever. Or was it? Some say the ruins still lie hidden, waiting to be found. Others believe the survivors fled, carrying their secrets to distant lands. Atlantis was no ordinary empire. It was said to be divided among 10 kings, all sons of Poseidon, the god of the sea. The eldest among them was Atlas, for whom the great ocean and the lost island itself were named. These kings were not mere mortals, but beings of divine blood, gifted with wisdom and strength beyond ordinary men. They ruled with justice, their laws inscribed upon a pillar of orichalcum in the sacred temple of Poseidon. The temple stood at the very heart of Atlantis, a marvel of towering spires and shimmering walls, where the god himself was worshipped with grand ceremonies. The land prospered under their rule, the earth bore fruit without fail, the mines yielded precious metals, and the people lived in harmony. The Atlanteans built great canals and bridges, connecting their island in perfect rings of water and stone. Their ships sailed to distant lands, trading treasures and knowledge with the early civilizations of Egypt and the far-off peoples beyond. But as time passed, the blood of the gods thinned in their veins. The later kings grew greedy, their hearts swelling with arrogance. They forgot the laws of Poseidon and sought to conquer the world beyond their shores. Their armies marched upon the lands of the Mediterranean, and their pride turned to cruelty. It was then that the gods took notice. Zeus, king of Olympus, looked upon Atlantis and saw its corruption. The rulers who were once just had become tyrants, and the people who were once noble had turned to decadence. The time of reckoning was near. But the fall of a great kingdom is never sudden, my child. No, the gods give warnings, omens in the sky, tremors in the earth, whispers in the wind, and so it was with Atlantis. In the final days, the priests of Poseidon spoke of strange signs. The sacred bulls, kept within the temple for sacrifice, refused to eat. The sea, usually calm within the sheltered rings of the city, grew restless, its waves crashing against the walls with unnatural fury. At night, the people claimed to hear distant thunder, though the skies remained clear. The kings dismissed these warnings as the ravings of fearful minds. They continued their conquests, their fleets setting sail for distant shores, their armies marching under banners of gold. But in the heavens, The gods had already gathered in council. Zeus, ruler of Olympus, raised his hand in judgment. Poseidon, though the father of Atlantis, could not defend his children. Their corruption had gone too far. Then came the day the earth shook. It began as a low rumble deep beneath the ground. The great statues of the kings toppled from their pedestals. The canals overflowed, their waters turning dark and frothing. The people ran through the streets in panic, but there was no escape. The sky turned the color of burning copper as ash rained from distant mountains that had burst into flame. The sea, once their protector, became their executioner. A wave rose, higher than the tallest tower, higher than the temple itself, and crashed upon the outermost ring of the city. Then another came, and another, swallowing the land whole. The earth split open, swallowing palaces and temples, dragging them into the depths. Some say the screams of the Atlanteans could be heard across the ocean, carried on the wind like the cries of gulls. Others claim that in the final moments, the kings gathered in the temple, praying for mercy that would never come. And then, silence. Where once there was an island of marvels, there was only the endless rolling sea. Atlantis was gone. When the great waves subsided and the fires died beneath the sea, the world believed Atlantis lost forever. But the gods, in their mercy, or perhaps their cruelty, allowed some to escape the drowning. Scattered like leaves in a storm, the survivors emerged onto foreign shores in battered ships, their eyes hollow with the horrors they had witnessed. Some washed up on the beaches of North Africa, where the desert winds burned their salt-cracked lips. Others found refuge in the rocky coasts of Iberia, their once fine robes now tattered by the elements. A handful even reached as far as the Nile Delta, collapsing at the feet of Egyptian fishermen who took them for drowned spirits returned from the Duat. These exiles carried with them broken fragments of their greatness. A goldsmith clung to his tools, though his hands shook too badly to use them. A scholar whispered mathematical theorems to himself like prayers, though no one could understand his tongue. A priestess of Poseidon clutched a water-stained scroll containing secrets that would never be read again. The native peoples who encountered these strange castaways told stories for generations about the sea ghosts, pale, hollow-eyed people who spoke in musical, unfamiliar languages and possessed uncanny skills. Some were welcomed, their knowledge of architecture and astronomy elevating primitive tribes. Others were feared and driven away, their foreign ways too unsettling for simple villagers. In Crete, a group of Atlantean sailors taught local craftsmen to build ships that could brave deeper waters. Along the coast of Portugal, an exile's knowledge of metalworking sparked a Bronze Age revolution. But with each passing year, their distinct features faded through intermarriage, their language softened by adoption of local tongues until only whispers remained. The greatest tragedy was not the drowning of their land, but the slow drowning of their memory. The last pure-blooded Atlantean is said to have died on a Greek hillside, an old woman who still turned her face west at sunset, singing lullabies to grandchildren who couldn't understand the words. Yet some say the bloodline never truly died out, that it flows secretly in the veins of certain families, waiting to awaken. Generations after the wave closed over Atlantis, When the survivors' grandchildren had grown old and their stories had faded into legend, the first seekers emerged. These were not treasure hunters or madmen, but philosophers and kings who caught whispers of the lost civilization in crumbling scrolls and half-remembered songs. The Egyptian priests at Sais spoke of it to Solon, the great Athenian lawmaker, their aged fingers tracing hieroglyphs that told of a mighty empire destroyed in a single day and night of misfortune. In Mesopotamia, scholars studying the stars whispered of an ancient people who had mapped the heavens with impossible precision before vanishing from the earth. The Carthaginians, greatest sailors of their age, avoided sailing too far west, muttering about the cursed waters where the golden city sleeps. The first recorded search was led by a Greek explorer named Crantor, who sailed beyond the Pillars of Hercules nearly 2,300 years ago. He returned empty-handed, but swore he'd seen shapes too straight to be stone beneath the clear blue waters near the Azores. The Roman scholar Pliny wrote of fishermen's nets snagging on carved columns in deep waters, their surfaces curiously smooth despite centuries under the sea. Most fascinating were the Dogon people of West Africa, who spoke of amphibious beings who came from a sunken island, bearing knowledge of stars invisible to the naked eye. Their tribal elders kept artifacts they claimed were Atlantean, strange metallic discs that hummed when struck by moonlight. As centuries passed, the searches grew more daring. Medieval Arab geographers drew maps with Atlantis marked as a warning at the ocean's edge. Christopher Columbus reportedly carried a book of Atlantean legends on his voyages, studying it by lamplight when his crew slept. But all these seekers faced the same cruel truth. The ocean guards its secrets well. For every hopeful clue, the sea provided 100 false leads, yet still they came, drawn by the siren song of history's greatest mystery, some with scholarly curiosity, others with greed in their hearts, but all united by the unshakable certainty that somewhere beneath the waves, Atlantis remembers. The 20th century brought new tools and new madness to the search for Atlantis. Where ancient scholars had only stars and stories to guide them, modern hunters came armed with sonar, satellites, and submarines. Yet the sea remained as stubborn as ever in guarding its secrets. In 1968, a pilot flying over the Bahamas spotted strange geometric shapes beneath the crystal waters near Bimini. What divers found became known as the Bimini Road, massive limestone blocks arranged in a straight line that seemed too perfect to be natural. Some claimed it was a drowned Atlantean harbor, while geologists insisted it was merely beach rock fractured by time. The debate rages on to this day. Then came the Russian expedition of 1974, when their research ship Academic Petrovsky dragged up unusual volcanic rock from the mid-Atlantic ridge, rock that showed signs of having been above water before sinking. The samples contained microscopic fossils of land plants, proving that part of the ocean floor had once been dry land. The scientists quietly published their findings, avoiding the word Atlantis, but the implications were clear. The most tantalizing discovery came in 2001, when satellite images revealed rectangular formations under shallow waters off the coast of Spain, near the Doñana National Park. Archaeologists found evidence of a destroyed ancient city. But was it Tartessos, as some claimed, or something far older. The site showed signs of having been struck by multiple tsunamis, with pottery fragments carbon-dated to the Bronze Age scattered across the ocean floor. Modern Atlantologists now search not just for a city, but for clues to its legacy. Geneticists trace unusual DNA markers along coastal populations from Morocco to Ireland. Linguists study the Basque language, Europe's oldest living tongue with no known relatives, for possible Atlantean roots. Oceanographers map underwater ruins from Japan to the Caribbean, wondering if Atlantis was not one city, but a global civilization swallowed piece by piece. Yet, for all our technology, the essential mystery remains. The sea gives just enough to keep us searching, but never enough to prove anything definitively. Perhaps that is how Poseidon wants it, his children's legacy always just beyond mortal grasp. Beyond the scientists and historians, there exists another group of seekers, those who claim not to search for Atlantis, but to remember it. These are the secret societies, mystic orders, and isolated lineages who whisper of inherited knowledge from the drowned world. The most enigmatic are the Basque people of the Pyrenees, whose language predates all Indo-European tongues. Their elders speak of Atlantica, an ancestral homeland lost to the sea, and preserve dances that mimic the movements of waves and drowning men. Stranger still are their cromlechs, ancient stone circles where, on certain nights, elders conduct rituals using a water-filled basin said to mirror the lost city's final moments. In the mountains of Tibet, certain Buddhist monasteries guard maps painted on yak hide, showing an island continent where no land exists today. The lamas speak of Sambala, spiritual kingdom, but some texts describe it in startlingly physical terms, with crystal towers that drew power from the earth and ships that moved without sails. When asked directly, the monks simply smile and turn their prayer wheels. Then there are the Rosicrucians, who since the 17th century have taught that Atlantean initiates escaped to Egypt, founding the mystery schools that would later influence Pythagoras and Plato. Their lodges preserve what they call the Emerald Tablet Ceremony, a ritual where initiates meditate on a strange green crystal said to be a fragment of Atlantis's great central temple. Most controversial are the modern channelers who claim to receive messages from Atlantean spirits. While most dismiss them as frauds, a curious pattern emerges in their independent accounts. Consistent descriptions of a power source called the Great Crystal. Details of 3 social classes: the children of the law of one, the sons of Belial, and the temple servants. And warnings about the danger of mixing divine science with human ambition. Whether these groups preserve genuine fragments of memory or elaborate fantasies matters less than what their persistence proves: that Atlantis lives on in humanity's collective imagination, a warning and a promise intertwined. For as long as these keepers whisper their secrets, the lost civilization is never truly gone. There comes a time in every grand civilization when the shadows grow long, when the cracks in the foundation can no longer be ignored. The Atlanteans knew this moment, and now, centuries later, we face our own. The parallels are uncanny. Like Atlantis, we have built towers that scrape the heavens, harnessed energies beyond our ancestors' wildest dreams, and conquered lands far beyond our shores. But also, like Atlantis, we have grown arrogant. Our oceans choke on waste, our skies darken with the fumes of progress, and our leaders squabble like the 10 kings of old while the earth trembles beneath them. Scientists warn of rising seas that could swallow coastal cities whole, just as the Atlantic devoured Poseidon's kingdom. Ancient glaciers melt at unnatural speeds, their icy tombs revealing long-dead forests not unlike those the Russian researchers found beneath the waves. The very ground beneath our feet grows restless. Earthquakes and volcanic eruptions increase in frequency as they did in Atlantis's final days. Most haunting of all are the reports from deep-sea explorers who claim to hear strange rhythmic sounds emanating from ocean trenches, pulses that some say match the supposed vibrational frequency of the Atlantean power crystals described in esoteric texts. Are these merely geological phenomena, or could they be echoes of some ancient machine still humming beneath the silt? The priests of Sias told Solon that Atlantis fell when it turned from wisdom to power. Now, our own scholars whisper similar warnings of climate thresholds crossed, of AI systems making decisions no human fully understands, of genetic experiments that blur the line between creator and creation. Yet there is one crucial difference. We have their example before us. The ruins of Atlantis, whether literal or metaphorical, stand as history's greatest cautionary tale. The question is not whether we will heed its warning, but whether we still can. For the tides are rising, my friends, and time grows short. But this story is not yet finished. What is it about this drowned kingdom that calls to us across the centuries? Why do scientists and mystics, poets and presidents alike find themselves drawn to this ancient mystery? The answer may lie not in the sands of time, but in the uncharted depths of the human soul. Every culture has its sunken city. The Welsh speak of Cantre Gwaelod beneath Cardigan Bay, the Indians of Krishna's golden Dwarka, swallowed by the Arabian Sea, the Japanese of the Dragon Palace, Ryugu-jo. But Atlantis alone captures the global imagination because it represents the first civilization that reached too far and fell too hard. It is Icarus on a societal scale. Modern dreamers come in many forms. Marine archaeologists like Dr. Richard Freund use ground-penetrating radar to search Spanish marshlands, following Plato's clues like detective novel clues. Billionaire tech moguls fund secret submarine expeditions, hoping to find Atlantean technology that could revolutionize energy systems. Science fiction authors spin tales of the city surviving in hollow earth caverns or parallel dimensions. The most fascinating dreamers are the children. In schools from Tokyo to Buenos Aires, when asked to draw Atlantis, they sketch remarkably similar visions: spiral cities with glowing crystals, even though few have read the original texts. Psychologists call this genetic memory. The theorists speak of racial consciousness. But perhaps the simplest explanation is this: Atlantis lives because we need it too. It represents our deepest fears of ecological collapse, our guilt about imperial overreach, our suspicion that every golden age carries the seeds of its own destruction, but also, crucially, our hope that not all was lost, that somewhere in the ocean's midnight zones, proof awaits that humanity once achieved greatness before the fall. And if we did it once, the dreamers keep Atlantis alive because the alternative is too terrible to consider. That civilizations rise only to inevitably crumble, leaving no trace but whispered warnings in the wind. And so we come to the final mystery, not of Atlantis' destruction, but of its endless rebirth in the human imagination. For the strangest truth may be this: Atlantis was never truly lost, because it was never truly a place at all. Consider this paradox. The more our technology advances, the more Atlantis recedes. Each time explorers believe they found its location, new evidence shifts the goalposts. The ruins near Bimini, a natural formation, the rectangular structures off Spain, a later Bronze Age settlement, the sonar anomalies in the Azores, volcanic formations. It's as if the island actively flees our understanding, always remaining just beyond the horizon of proof. Perhaps Plato himself understood this when he crafted the tale. The philosopher wasn't documenting history. He was creating a mirror. Atlantis is the perfect metaphor, shape-shifting to serve each new era's anxieties. To Renaissance scholars, it represented lost ancient wisdom. To 19th century theosophists, a spiritual homeland. To modern climate activists, a warning of ecological hubris. The most compelling theory comes from an unlikely source: deep-sea biologists studying the Mariana Trench. They've discovered extremophile bacteria that thrive on underwater volcanic vents, life forms that could survive planetary cataclysms. These scientists suggest that if an advanced civilization did fall millennia ago, all physical traces would have long since been consumed by the relentless ocean. What remains isn't stone or metal, but something far more persistent: the idea of Atlantis encoded in humanity's collective consciousness, mutating like a cultural virus to ensure its own survival. So the cycle continues. Children will keep drawing spiral cities with glowing spires. Explorers will keep scanning ocean floors. Scholars will keep debating Plato's intentions. And the sea will keep its secrets, as it has for 12,000 years. Because some truths aren't meant to be uncovered, they're meant to be sought. The value of Atlantis lies not in its discovery, but in the eternal quest it inspires. As long as we keep searching the depths, both of oceans and of souls, the lost city lives on. And so, my dear listener, the tale comes not to an end, but to a pause. For Atlantis waits, as it always has and always will, for the next dreamer to gaze seaward and wonder. And that, my friends, is the tale of Atlantis. To keep listening to more stories like this, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Until next time, this is Uncle Ben, signing off. Take care, and may the gods watch over you.